Hello, beloved. It's that time when we do sacred reading together. If you're not familiar with sacred reading, if this is the first time you've stumbled onto this, this is an opportunity for us to take a sacred text. We read it aloud together, or you can do it by yourself. And as we read it aloud, we listen for a word, a phrase, an image that rises up in us. With Spirit speaking into our lives, something we need to hear. Sacred reading, or Lectio Divina in Latin, is the invitation to believe Spirit can speak right now into the lives that we have and can offer us a way of seeing, hearing, knowing something that we need to know right now. To be reminded of it. It might draw something up from our unconscious that we need to know, or it might call us out because we've followed a path that perhaps we ought not to follow. As First John in the First Nations text has called it, the broken path. So today we're reading from First John chapter 5. We're very near the end. We're reading verses 16 and 17. And if you do this at home by yourself, and this is something anyone can do, it doesn't require some kind of special degree or anything. We read the text, often a short text. We listen for what it says to us. I encourage, if you do it, that you read it out loud. If you're uncomfortable with that, find a space by yourself, read it out loud, because you hear the words. You reproduce the words in your vocal cords. And sometimes our eyes can play tricks on us as we absorb information directly into our brain, but if we read it aloud, we might hear an aspect of it that we needed to hear. And most all of the Christian text was originally spoken word before it became written word. So hearing it spoken is hearing it as it was originally intended. So let's listen today for a word from Spirit in 1 John chapter 5, verses 16 and 17. You might see a sacred family member walking in a broken way that does not end in death. You should pray, and that person will be given life, as long as the broken way does not end in death. There is a broken way that ends with death. If that is so, prayer will not help. All who do wrong, walk in broken ways, but not all broken ways end in death. Sometimes when we do sacred reading, if I'm being really honest with you, you listen to a text. You might even listen a second time and a third time. And you're not sure exactly what it is saying to you. And you may come to it with a question. And that question may be, you might walk away with that question, and it might be the question itself that you're meant to dwell on through the rest of the day, that you might ponder, you might ask in prayer, you might seek other ways of seeing it. This is one of those texts for me today. Certainly I've studied 1 John as a Bible study book, which is completely different than Lectio Divina in many ways. You try to get at what the text originally meant. With sacred reading, You expect it to have a meaning perhaps that you can hear right now without even knowing what the original intent was. I listened to this, and clearly it was an invitation. When we see someone who's part of the community, who's walking the broken path, who's doing things other than what we might be called to do, we are called upon to pray for that person. That's what the text says. That's what I heard it say to me, is pray for people that you see who are wandering off the path, who are going broken ways. I really like that phrase, if I'm being honest with you, broken ways. Someone is on broken ways, as opposed to the smooth or unbroken path. But if I'm being honest with you, the question that rose for me in the text, without doing any additional study or going to the text and pulling out a commentary, what is the difference between a broken way that does not end in death and a broken way that ends in death? Are we talking about some sense of eternal death? Is it something that endangers the person's life who is from the community? What is the broken way that ends in death? What is the broken way that ends in death? In this little section, what is it? Because in some instances, prayer is helpful, and apparently in other instances, not so much. So when I see someone walking in a broken way, there's nothing in here about calling them out, telling them they're wrong. But there is in the text the invitation to pray for someone that I think is on a broken path. I know that in my life of prayer, oftentimes when I pray for someone else, particularly when I'm struggling with that person, what prayer does is give me a new perspective on what's on that person. Oftentimes it softens my heart. It makes it possible for me to engage that person in a different way, through a different perception. Because praying for someone brings someone into our own spiritual space, into our heart. So I'm going to have to ponder this. What is the broken way that leads to death? I don't know that I'll have an answer. I don't know that you'll have an answer. Maybe you'll assume you have an answer, just like sometimes I assume I do. And maybe you will. Maybe you absolutely know the answer. As always, I invite you to respond if you wish in the comment section, on the Facebook page, on my page if you want to. You can certainly do it on the YouTube channel page if you want. Always interested to hear how this hit you, what you think, realizing that part of what sharpens each other is when we can share our thoughts with others. So I hope this is the day after Christmas. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. I hope you're still having a Merry Christmas, because Christmas is a season, 12 days long. This is the second day of Christmas. So I hope you're celebrating Christmas well, that you're experiencing the birth of Christ in your life in new and empowering ways, that you're giving birth to what Christ is calling you to, and that perhaps this text will speak into your life, some truth you need to hear. It will raise some question that you need to ask. But whatever it may be, remember you're infinitely precious, unconditionally loved for the